All right, thanks, and welcome once again to Ultrasonic Film. As always, I'm your host, James, talking about movies, and more movies. We've got a very special show today. I'm welcoming two guests. First up here is Christian Smock. Christian, you are the director of a documentary about a very cool cult film from the 80s called Avenging Force. I want to welcome you to Ultrasonic Film.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. And this next extra special guest, and I know Christian will go along with me on this, is Sam Furstenberg. He is a legendary director of all of these really cool films from the 1980s, 90s, even into the 2000s. American Ninja 2, Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo, Ninja 3, The Domination, and of course the film that we're going to focus in on today, Avenging Force. Sam, welcome once again back to Ultrasonic Film.
Yeah, thank you, James. It's always nice to be in ultrasonic film radio.
It's great to have you back here. It is. I'd love to talk firstly about how you two guys met. I'd love to get Chris's point of view, Christian's point of view, first off here. When did you first meet Sam and possibly start the genesis for this whole project?
Okay, well, since COVID began, having to shelter in place and quarantine, I've been working remotely, luckily enough, since March 11th. Right before that time, I decided to do what was initially going to be a regular podcast. I thought was going to be audio, kind of similar to your show, perhaps, at the time. I had a guest named Tom Stern, who's a producer actor, who was set up to do that. COVID hit. We couldn't do it because we couldn't be in the same room together.
Right.
I revamped the idea for Zoom. I did 2 episodes with Tom Stern. We call it a multimedia docucast because it's not like a regular podcast. It's heavy with post-production. We have original music. Guy in the UK does our music. The Interceptor, he's a synthwave artist. He's amazing.
Cool.
And I'm a multimedia designer with a background in journalism. So I was able to bring a lot of my skill sets into this. So we did 1 episode. We sent it to Sam. We asked Sam if he would be our next guest.
Awesome.
I didn't really expect to hear back from Sam, to be honest, but he watched the first episode and loved it. And he wrote back and said, I'd be more than happy to do it. And that's how it started.
Awesome. Well, Sam, I got to tell you, that was my experience as well. When I first requested to interview you for the show, I honestly didn't expect to hear back from you. I was just sending it off, hoping, and you've always been such a gracious and friendly interview subject. You really love the films that you've done in the past, and you love talking about them. Would that be a fair assessment?
Oh, absolutely. I'm now in the business. I'm now in the business of conserving the legacy. I don't direct anymore, so I spend my time conserving the legacy. And then, you know, with the resurgent, with everything coming up with all those 35 years old movies, so it keeps me full time. But listen, I like to tell stories. I'm a storyteller, either on the screen or with my mouth. So I love to tell story. So when you contacted me, when Chris contacted me, I'm just more than happy to come and help and preserve the stories and tell the stories of how all those movies came to life.
Awesome. And like I say, we're going to be talking about the Avenging Force documentary, but another great example of your storytelling is the book. And I know you want to mention the book and get the word out there on this, and I want you to do it because it's an amazing book. Just hundreds of pages of stories of canon films, stories of previous films that you've worked on, and these are really well worth reading. I know you'd agree, wouldn't you, Christian?
Absolutely. It's an amazing book. It's a phone book of just knowledge. I mean, it's incredible.
Phone book is an excellent description of it because it is, like I say, hundreds of pages long and very, very detailed. Sam, when you were working on the book with the author, you wanted to make sure to get everything in there, didn't you?
Correct. The author of the book, Marco Siedelman, he approached me. He really wanted to do a book about canon in the beginning. But when he started to research, he saw that the subject is huge. Canon film is a huge subject, and many other people are already writing and have written and writing books. And we started to talk, and then he kind of started to focus on my career and the movies that I directed. And the idea to include all the movies, to cover all the movies are his ideas. What I wanted to do, and we eventually we did, is to kind of reflect in the book this period of the independent movies, of the genre independent movies in the 80s, in the beginning of the 90s, which were all hinged on the explosion of the VHS, the home video cassettes.
Right.
And I think it's reflected in the book. So it's not only about the movies I directed. He interviews a lot of people that kind of give a picture, a general picture. What was this period? What was this this niche, this piece of the pie of the Hollywood history, the history of Hollywood, which is called the independent, low-budget genre movies of the 80s and the 90s.
I definitely would recommend the book as well. And of course, if people want to order the book, what's the name of it? You mentioned the author's name as well. Where can they go? So
they go to Amazon, only through Amazon. And the name of the book is Stories from the Trenches. the Making Movies, something like this. Adventures in Making Movies with Sam Furstenberg. But that's the main title. Stories from the Trenches, Marco Siedelman, Sam Furstenberg, and it's in Amazon. It's easy.
Awesome. Well, that sounds really good. Well, of course, one of the films that you've done, and that is highlighted in the book as well, is Avenging Force. So we definitely should touch base on that. I've got a bunch of questions on that one, of course. But from Avenging Force, one of the things that you and I talked about in the past was that how difficult it was to film the fight sequences in the swamp. I asked you what were some of the most difficult scenes you ever shot, and you chose that film and those fight sequences as the among the most difficult. Why is that? Why do you think it was so difficult for you?
Well, let me explain. When I received the script was written as we eventually shot it, as we filmed it. It was written for New Orleans, and the action was written for the swamps in Louisiana, the bayous in Louisiana.
Right.
Now, so on paper, it sounds fantastic, easy, no problem, like Revenge of the Ninja.
Yeah.
But once we got there, it was not that easy. Number one, those bayous are humongous. And we stayed to begin with, we stayed in a hotel in New Orleans. It's a 1.5 hour drive to the swamps and back every day. So it's 3 hours in the buses every day.
Wow.
The second thing, it's huge, it's humongous, it's so big. And there are a couple of roads inland, but most of it is wild, totally wild. It's infested with dangerous animals, alligator and snakes, moccasins, snakes, poisonous snakes and alligator, the water. And then we found out that those water are totally like mud. Once you put your foot inside the water, it's shallow. It's not deep. The swamps are very shallow. But once you put your foot in, it goes down, it sinks into like a quicksand. So all of this, now, in the low budget filmmaking, we don't have the luxury of building a swamp on a stage, having a swamp background, and then warm, nice, beautiful water with no animals, and just shooting it. So we are shooting in real location. So this was the first obstacle. What do we do so actors, everybody is not sinking in the mud? So we had to create a mesh wire floor and plywood floor inside, underneath, in the water, so they can fight, because the fight sequences are real fight sequences.
So they're standing on top of plywood.
Plywood and mesh wire.
Wow.
The second thing, it was my idea. I wanted the whole, and this is a long sequence, it's about 12 minutes.
Right.
I wanted the whole thing to be in the rain. Now, sometimes it rains naturally over there in Louisiana, let's say 1 hour, 2 hours every day, but we needed continuity. So we had rain machines. So it was raining all the time on top of the actors. So, and they have to fight in the rain, in this muddy, dirty water, with the possibility that some alligator will jump in suddenly into the fight, which did not happen. And all of this together was pretty challenging, grueling. The drive every day, driving was not counted. We are not a union movie. The driving back and forth is not counted as filming hours. So we are waking up in the dark. We are driving 1.5 hours, shooting for 12 hours, another 1.5 hours back to the hotel.
Wow.
It was real. And for them, I didn't have to go to fight and to fall into the water with my face. But the actors, the stunt people, the doubles, they have to fall into the water. They had to, of course, minor injuries, small things. So all in all, it was very grueling and very challenging to do it. But everybody liked it. Everybody was enthusiastic about it. So, and the results are there in the movie. It can be felt.
Absolutely.
And nowadays with the modern technique of optical effect, digital optical effects, etc., a lot can be created. Let's say the rain can be created optically. We didn't. Everything which the audience see really actually happened physically. There is no optical effects whatsoever, none.
Well, it gives that film a sort of a realistic intensity that a lot of films nowadays don't have. As a young kid, I saw American Ninja and American Ninja 2 first, and then I saw Avenging Force later on. And I think a lot of people had that experience because Avenging Force wasn't as widely distributed as American Ninja and American Ninja 2, which we touched on in the past. Christian, was that your similar experience as well? Did you see the American Ninja movies, then saw Avenging Force afterwards? And what was your reaction when you first saw this film?
To be honest, I can't remember. I know I saw, yes, I did see American Ninja first. The very first Sam Furstenberg movie I saw was Revenge of the Ninja when I was about 9, because my grandfather is a martial artist,
Cool.
and he had a bunch of kung fu movies and stuff. And I did see Avenging Force, but it was one of those ones I caught on VHS when I was young, and it was, I can't remember if I saw it before or after American Ninja 2. But it was one of those ones that I did enjoy, but I didn't really, I guess, appreciate it as much until I got older. Some of the themes in it, the way, and it's definitely a much grittier, the fight scenes, like I told Sam, I think of it more of his fisticuffs movie. The fight scenes are just brutal, almost like street fighting.
They really
the
is.
mud, the rain. You can feel that they're really fighting out there. You know that it's not a soundstage. Like you can feel, and the action in the ninja movies is great martial arts, but it's more, it's a different type of action. Avenging Force has a different feel to it. For sure. And it's aesthetically a lot darker. The themes of the film are a lot darker too, as opposed to, American Ninja or American Ninja 2. You have the American Ninja 2, you have the super soldiers and things like that. Avenging Force, it has a social political angle to it that's interesting as well. So, and
not entirely outdated in today's political climate either.
Unfortunately, it's much more relevant today than in '86, probably.
And that's a shame. I was rewatching it recently and noting that yes, unfortunately, the political angle is something that's still out there, but it adds a little bit of a grit to the film and makes the villain that much more heinous as well.
Ooh, yes, the villains are very despicable. I wanted to explore that movie first out of Sam's films because one, I thought that it was overlooked and underrated from Sam's films anyway, and from Canon films just in general. It also is much different than a lot of the Reagan era action films of the time and the Reagan era heroes of the time that were going after more foreign invaders that are coming in, or Rambo type of films. It was kind of the beginning of the liberal action hero in a sense. So I thought that was an interesting thing to explore.
No, I would agree with you. Absolutely. And it adds to that film and definitely, like I say, keeps it and makes it relevant. So it works quite well. Sam, I gotta ask you, one thing I noted when I rewatched the film is, and this is something I've seen for many, many years because, of course, American Ninja, American Ninja 2, and Avenging Force are favorites of mine. It's the chemistry between Dudikoff and Steve James is so fun to watch. They're like brothers. And during the action sequences, it's almost like a couple of kids playing cops and robbers. You get the sense of fun that they're actually having, enjoying each other, working with each other. There's a real camaraderie there. between a white guy and a black guy in the 1980s. And like I say, it's something you don't really see. Even now in films, you just don't see that kind of camaraderie and just the loose-natured fun that's basically happening in those films, and also in Avenging Force as well. And I think that's something that really gives the film a wonderful power. What do you think, Sam?
First of all, you're absolutely right. But let me just mention that the subjects that you are bringing up, the political foreshadowing,
yes,
this camaraderie, are really emphasized in this documentary that Chris did, which is called The Making of Avenging Force. And I'm sure you will ask him question about it. But it's really, he really went deep into those two subjects that you're just
excellent.
mentioning.
I guessed well.
but he will tell you. But let me mention this thing about Michael Dudikoff and Steve James. You know, there is magic in movies. There is magic that is unformulated. You cannot, when one makes a movie, when the filmmakers are making a movie, it's very hard to predict or to quantify the magic that will happen once the whole thing is put together, edited, music, and it's on the screen. It's something that is very hard to see on the set. So, you know, in the casting sessions, when we were casting the movie, it took us sometimes to choose Michael Dudikoff as the American Ninja.
Right.
It was we didn't spend any time with Steve James. The minute he walked in, he was hit. This was, you know, Curtis. Jackson Curtis was Steve James, with his body, with his demeanor, with the way. And the relationship are in the script. No question about it. This was the idea of the script. In the military, we have a white guy, a black guy. They become good friends, etc. As people who saw American Ninja know, and also in Avenging Force. Now, of course, in the low budget arena, in the field of low budget, we don't have the luxury of rehearsals. We don't have rehearsals like in big movies. So actually, what happened, the actors are meeting each other on the first day of the shoot. They don't know each other. We don't have this luxury of 2 weeks of rehearsal and let's work it out. And so Steve and Michael, they met each other the first day or the day before, when we all we all met in Manila, in the Philippines. And you cannot say that the friendship was right there in the day number one. So just like in the movie, and we started the first scenes that we were shooting were early in the script. And just like in the movie, the first scene that we shot between Michael and James that we filmed was that they are in the military, in the base, that they have this little fight, this martial art fight. This was the first scene that they were filming together. And the animosity is there, you can feel it. But as we progressed in the filming, they became good friends off screen. You know, good friend, good, you know, they had a lot of in common and it worked. But the magic is there on the screen, what people call the chemistry. The chemistry is there, it's on the screen. On the screen, they look like best of friends, like two young guys who are willing to give their lives to save each other.
Right.
And this is a magic. This is a magic that you cannot predict ahead of time. It happened. Luckily, you know, so even some big movies, sometimes the casting doesn't work. The main guy and the main romantic girl, just no chemistry. And sometimes the chemistry is unbelievable. It just works, and that's like the movie. So this was the situation between Michael and Steve. Of course, when we made the Avenging Force and later American Ninja #2, then they were already good friends, and it reflects on the screen. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. Now, of course, Sam mentioned, Christian, that in your documentary, these are some of the themes that are actually covered. And I'm very pleased that I'm on the same page with you. I can't wait to see the documentary as well. What are some of the other themes that you've explored? Because it is a feature-length documentary focused on the making of Avenging Force.
Yes. Well, we've been able to cover a lot. As you know, Sam has near photographic memory when it comes to production and everything. I mean, details. So we focus on a lot. And aside from the pre-production, production, casting, you know, everything that you would expect, we cover in the film. We also go outside of that a lot. I mean, I was inspired heavily by Stories from the Trenches by Marco Seidelman's book.
Right.
And I give him credit for that in the doc. So Avenging Force is really the anchor to the documentary. We focus on Avenging Force and we're centered on that. But we veer off from that a lot because you can't talk about one of Sam's films without it going to his other films and going to canon, because he's so entrenched, you know, no pun intended, entrenched with canon. You know, we'll veer off and we'll talk about the Reagan era action heroes, or we'll talk about Chuck Norris and the Missing in Action films. And
cool.
So there's a lot just behind the scenes with canon, independent filmmaking, the 80s action films of the time. But we're always centered back to Avenging Force. You know, it's all centered on that. We've also interviewed Sam. We've interviewed him on his first 7 movies. So this is the first in a series that we're calling In the Trenches with Sam, which is supposed to be.
That's awesome. I really hope you get a chance to make many of these. And of course, I'm going to be a diehard audience for this. We're going to say where you can see the documentary at the end of the interview as well. But I also want to throw the information out now. So you guys have a special premiere and you have a Q&A with Sam, right?
Yes, we're doing a premiere on Patreon. It's going to be patreon.com/RetroFiendRadio. That's where you can go. And we're having the premiere the weekend of January 29th, which is Friday the 29th through Sunday the 31st of January. So you'd have the whole weekend to exclusively watch it on Patreon. Plus on Sunday, the 31st at 11 a.m. Pacific time, we'll be doing In the Trenches with Sam Q&A, where we can meet everyone on the Patreon. The Patreon we're setting up for the premieres and the Q&As for all of our episodes of In the Trenches with Sam. I know that a lot of people will probably just come on for the month to watch the premiere and then, you know, maybe come back when we have another premiere. But I picked that platform because I thought we could have bonus footage, extras, you know, raw Zoom interviews, things that I could put up and give people more content, you know.
Yeah, and people can kind of take what they need from it, and you're going to have the more diehard fans that are going to go through everything, obviously, and then people that'll be, no, I think that's a great idea. I really do, because people can kind of really get to know, and quite frankly, you get addicted to a lot of these films, and I think that a lot of that is going to happen as well. Sam, can I ask you a couple more questions there about Avenging Force?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Cool. I got to ask you, James Booth, the screenwriter, is actually a co-star in the film. Was that something that was set out right from the beginning, or was that something that just sort of happened as you were starting the production?
No. James Booth is a respected British actor. Prior to writing, he was in the movie Zulu, in the famous movie Zulu, and a Shakespearean actor, stage in Britain. And then somehow he came here and he hooked up with Canon. And he started to write. I don't know at what point in his life he started to write, but good, strong writing. And Avenging Force was actually a sequel to Invasion USA. He wrote it as an invasion. It's the same. We didn't even change the name of the hero. Matt Hunter is same Matt Hunter.
I never put that together.
For Chuck Norris.
I never put that together. Wow, cool.
But since he was a writer-actor, so he wrote for himself a part. He didn't want to play major part in the movie. He was with us on the set to help us any changes we need in the script, any modification. And he wrote this part. You know, he did it in a way that he will be a part. Actually, you know that the movie is set up a little bit for a sequel, which never happened. And if there was a sequel, if there would have been a sequel, his part would have been bigger, even bigger. The part that he played. So he a little bit tailored it to his. But let me mention one thing about this Jim Booth and his writing. You know, most of the script that came to me to direct, Revenge of the Ninja, Enter the Ninja, Electric Boogaloo, American Ninja, we always had to modify the script. We have to work on the script, to change it, to do whatever. this script, Avenging Force, which was called Night Hunter in the beginning, when I read it, I was so impressed. I didn't have word to how much, and we did not change one word.
Awesome.
Except some minor changes, modification to locations. But it was so solid. The script was so solid and so strong, and we didn't have to change one word. And apparently, we didn't know at the time. It's a like prophetry. It's a prophet script. It predicted stuff that will happen years later that at the time were not yet there. But he had the talent and the view as an Englishman who came to America, and he could see it a little bit from outside. So this was the story. He was mainly the writer, but very accomplished, famous actor in Britain, in England.
Yeah. Now, Avenging Force was a film that, as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately suffered a little bit because of its distribution. Now, we touched on that earlier, but would you say because of that, because the film got such strong reviews and because it's remained a cult film all these years, that it's definitely one of the unsung films from the 80s that I don't think a lot of people have seen, but really should have seen? And I definitely, Christian, I want to get your take on this as well. This is a film I don't think a ton of people have seen, but holds up really, really well.
Absolutely. I agree completely. And as we said before, with the themes of white supremacy and systemic racism that the Pentangle has, they're a group that is venomously opposed to anyone that doesn't agree with their view of what America should be. I think now it's kind of more relevant than ever before, and I think more palatable. If you look online, if you go on any of the Canon Film fan pages on Facebook, anything like that, before we were working on this doc, you just see Avenging Force stuff popping up. And I think it's popping up because of the environment, the social, political environment. People are posting about it constantly. We just happened to be making this at the right time, I guess. I mean, as we were making, the first interview I did with Sam was on October 3rd. By October 8th, in Michigan, there was a group that tried to kidnap the governor there. She's a woman of color.
Right.
They were trying to basically do what the Pentangle's trying to do with Larry Richards, the senator.
Right.
It's basically the same thing. So it seemed, it seemed like the climate was there. I mean, even Sam's film Break Into Electric Boogaloo, there's a group that's named themselves after that movie. They call themselves the Boogaloos, the Boogaloo Boys. They're looking for the Civil War II Electric Boogaloo. I mean, what could be more disgusting? I mean, a group of guys that take a movie that's got a cast of predominantly people of color, made by an Israeli, and they turn it into something ugly and hateful. So it's really interesting. Sam, his films are action films. On the surface, they're very they're slam bang action exploitation movies, I guess. But there is social political commentary. I mean, it might be buried, but I'm even in Break Into, there's a lot of themes of gentrification. There's a lot of racism in that movie. They don't use racial slurs and things, but like Lucinda Dickey's parents refer to her friends as street people. They're basically talking about Black people.
Right.
You know what I mean? And even, Ninja 3 even has, a lot of female empowerment themes. There's a lot of interesting stuff in Sam's movies when you scrape the surface,
Yeah, very true. Sam, I haven't actually talked to you too much about this film, but since we were talking a little bit about racial overtones, Riverbend is a very interesting film that not a lot of people have seen once again. But again, it's got the great Steve James in it. And it's a very compelling film that I think was well ahead of its time. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Let me tell you a nice anecdote, a story about it. Steve James, of course, who was in American Ninja, and an American Ninja exploded while we were shooting Avenging Force. I'll get to Riverbend in a second.
Yeah.
While we were filming Avenging Force, American Ninja exploded, and then we finished Avenging Force, and I will just touch a second on the subject of the distribution. It was not only because of the lack of success, was not only there is a story behind it. It was not only because of the subject matter.
Right.
Because the movie was you know, Michael Dudikoff and Steve James were suddenly stars.
Yeah.
And the movie could have been big success. But just at this point, it's a little bit gossip here. Just at this point, Canon, the company Canon, had a big fight with MGM.
Right.
MGM distributed American Ninja, and they had a big fight. And if MGM, you know, presumably if MGM would have distributed Avenging Force, they would exploit this Michael Dudikoff and Steve James. But Canon decided to distribute the movie by themselves. And Canon was a tiny company when it comes to distribution. So this was another subject. Now, when Steve James, Menachem Golan gave me the script because it's known that Chuck Norris did not want to do this movie. He didn't like Avenging Force. So somehow it landed in my hand to do it with Michael Dudikoff and Steve James. Steve James read the script and he didn't like the fact, really didn't like the fact that he is dying in the middle of the movie, or 3/4 into the movie, he dies.
Yeah.
And he says, Sam, I must protest and I must tell you, I don't like this idea. I did not come to make movies to die in them. I want to be a hero. You know, he wanted to.
Yeah.
But you know, the script was good. The script was good. The subject was interesting. As you say, a black politician runs in the South for a position. So he understood that it's good to say. So he always, and especially the day we were shooting the burning house, the scene that he has to die,
right.
He was upset. He said, listen, you owe me. Just remember, you owe me. I'm doing it for you. I don't want to. Okay. So then we left it at this. We did American Ninja #2. And then a few years later, the script, River Band, landed in my hand.
Nice.
And it was some producers from Texas came to me, and they specifically came to me because I had the connection to Steve James. They wanted Steve James in the lead part. So I'm reading the script. I said, well, I'll give it to Steve. He's going to be so happy because this is heroic, just character with the morals, high moral. And you know, I introduced him to the producers, and he got the job. They like him, and he got the job, and he was so happy with it. And for the ones who don't know, it's available now online. You anybody can see Riverman online, but online is a movie that deals with the racial injustice in the South in the 60s, in the 1960s, during the Vietnam War. And it's some kind of a fantasy story about an occurrence that never happened, where a group of black people, citizens of a small town, are so fed up with the injustice and discrimination that they take over the little town in the 60s, 1960s,
right?
And they force their way into exposing what's happening. And it's something that never happened in reality, but it was the fantasy of the writer, Sam Vance. And we were there, and the thing is that it was a private movie, was not produced by a company, was produced by private money. Some gentleman from Texas had the money, he liked the script, and he wanted to produce it by himself. And so he produced it, and once we finished all our work, all the creative people, including myself, all the way to the end, to the end of the editing, he had the control of the movie. It was his private movie, and he didn't land a good distribution, or he didn't know how to manage. I was out of the picture by then, and one way or another, the movie did not get exposure. There was another reason, maybe at the same time, a movie, Mississippi Burning, came out. And actually, he sold his movie, River Band, to a studio, I think to Warner Brother, or
Paramount.
Paramount. But they distributed also Mississippi Burning. So basically, what they did is an exercise known in Hollywood as to buy and to bury. They buy a movie and they bury the movie so it does not compete with another movie that they have. So that's what happened to the movie, and it didn't get the exposure. Also, there was no big star. It was Steve James and other good Texan actors from Texas. All the actors are from Texas, and Margaret Avery from Color Purple.
Yeah.
And really, it's relevant. It's interesting. It is a fantasy, but it's very, very interesting a movie that I consider interesting, and I'm so happy that I made this movie, that I directed.
Awesome. Sam, I got to ask you once again about your action sequences. I love chatting with you about action sequences because you've said in the past they're like a story unto themselves. You have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that's certainly very evident once again in Avenging Force. I love the chase with the car sequences and the truck. It ends up on the shipyard, and you've got all these inventive things that the boys can play with as they're taking out the bad guys. Is something like that set up ahead of time, or is that something you work with your action coordinators to say, well, we need a specific location, and while we're here, let's do this? How much improvising is basically into that, or do you plan everything to a T?
So Chris touches a lot on this subject with his documentary. But let me answer to you. Again, we are talking about big budget movies, low budget movies. It's very important to understand. In a big budget movie, even James Bond, but today's big action movies, we are talking about $100 million, $200 million, the Fast and the Furious, when they decide to make a piece of action and they build it and they make it, so they will do to any length to achieve what they put on the paper. Optical effect, building sets, whatever they want, special cars, whatever they need, they have, because the money is there. There is no problem with money. For us, the people of low budget movies, we didn't have this luxury. We wanted a lot of action. One of my ideas with directing action movies was that we are going to have 45 minutes of action. 50% of the movie is going to be pure action. So the action is written in the script, not in very detailed way, but in general, it's written in the script. Then usually I sit with my stunt coordinator, action people, and I start to build the sequence in general terms. Okay, we are going to have a chase, we are going to have the story part of the action sequence, the ups and the downs and the coming back of the hero, and then the winning at the end. Now comes the question of location. When we go to location, I always strive to find very interesting locations to stage the fights, because interesting location, they gear themselves, they help the visual, they help everybody to create more exciting action sequences. So of course we go to location 2, 3, 4 weeks before shooting, before the filming, and I'm there with my stunt coordinator and the fight choreographer and action people, and we scout for location. I'm asking the location scouts to find interesting stuff, and once I like one of the location, they start to work again on the sequence. Now we have storyboard. It's not that improvised. It's partially improvised, but I do have storyboard for every action sequence. And I work with the storyboard artist, with the stunt, with the action people, and we storyboard the action sequence. It doesn't mean that on location we might add and improvise in addition to the storyboard, but we work according to the storyboard. We are not totally partisans working in the dark, you know.
Absolutely.
So there is a storyboard. There is a lot of preparation by and finding an interesting location, adapting the action sequence to the location, try to exploit the location to get the most that we can get out of the location in terms of excitement, and readjusting the action, and then coming and filming the action. So that's our world, the world of low budget. We have to work with the location, and we have to come up with the creative ideas how to achieve excitement where we don't have all the means and all the money. Though in this case, in Avenging Force, we had a good budget. This was not a small, tiny little cheap movie. So for instance, there is a big fire sequence, action fire sequence. We had to build. This was not a location. Obviously, this is very controlled environment. So the art department with the special effect department, they built this special set, this special house, which is fireproof and flames, etc. All the techniques. So we had to build this one in order to have it. So it was built to our specification. It will be exciting enough. 2 stories with a balcony in the house, with the falling stairs. Everything was built, storyboard. Again, it was all storyboard, so nobody makes a mistake.
Wow.
And we know what we are doing. So we were blessed enough to have a little bit more money in this movie, that we mix the two methods, the location method and the building a set method.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have some incredible set pieces. I mentioned the ship. You mentioned the house, which pretty much is burned to the ground. And it's incredible how that's done because, of course, there's no CGI. And you've got actors running around these flames. And it looks really vivid, really real. The first time I saw it, of course, I enjoyed the American Ninja movie so much. And the camaraderie, my heart was in my throat here as to what was happening to Steve James. I mean, I was like, damn. Sam is just dragging me through the mud here. It's a real emotional powerhouse of a scene. And yeah, it's really something. I'd love to ask you about Mardi Gras, though. That Mardi Gras sequence is really interesting because you start the suspicious music almost 5 minutes before something really happens. So you really drag us in there. You can sense some kind of suspicious music, and Dudikoff is noticing a few things. But it takes a while before anything actually kind of transpires, but it really hooks you quite well. And I was curious as to your decision as to why you started that kind of so early and kind of gradually moved into that.
So you're right. Number one, 2 things. Number one, this Mardi Gras was created. We created the Mardi Gras, not me. So luckily, the city gave us a street, not the French Quarter, not the main street, not the Market Street, but the parallel street next to it, because it's very fragile and very dangerous. And we assembled our art department and production, and we had a terrific assistant director, Sharon Mann. They assembled this Mardi Gras procession, all extras, all of them extras, and the crowd, all extras working for the movie with marching band, etc., etc. And we had to shoot it and repeat it only 2 times. It was very complex, very, very complex. Secondly, we had a great composer in this movie, George S. Clinton. After this movie, he went, he worked with me, American Ninja #2, but then he composed some great major productions. Mm-hmm. So when the Mardi Gras goes on, and the New Orleans, okay, it's the beginning of the movie. Steve James runs for some position, and there is a question in the dinner before they go into Mardi Gras, and he's trying to suppress it. He said, Matt Hunter asked him, everything is secure, everything okay, and Steve's kind of brushes aside. Said, don't worry, the usual troublemakers.
Exactly. Crank
capture it only in 1 sentence.
Yeah.
And you live it. So okay, but now as an audience, this Mardi Gras, Sam Furstenberg is not going to show you Mardi Gras just because it's a Mardi Gras,
Exactly.
Something will happen. Obviously, something. So of course there is a Mardi Gras, and we have a lot of fun, music, stuff that I like, and then at some point, as you say, like 5 minutes, 4 minutes before the action start, we wanted to start to throw the hints to telegraph, to throw to the audience, you are not just seeing a Mardi Gras for the fun of it, just because this Mardi Gras has a purpose and it will lead us to something.
Yeah.
So, but you don't know what. Well, it's a nice manipulation technique. It's a nice cinematic technique to put your audience on the edge, because what do we do after all? We manipulate the audience's emotions. That's movie making. Movie making is manipulating audience's emotion. Doesn't matter if it's a love story or an action story. So that's why. So we started this manipulation of the emotion little bit before the real action starts. So now it's something edgy in the music. You can tell by the music, whoa, wait a second, something, let's see what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
So this was it. And it was, we had a good editor, Michael Duffy, of course, he worked with me almost all the action movies that I directed. And he was very musical, Michael Duffy, the editor, and Clinton, and George Clinton was fantastic. So it all works well. It's nice that you noticed it.
Absolutely.
Usually audience don't notice things like this. It's subconscious. Those things are subconsciously. And they don't have to analyze it, but very nice that you have noticed.
That's awesome. Christian, I got to ask you, you seem like a lifelong film fan like myself. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes, that's a very fair assessment.
Cool. Now, I have seen many versions of The Most Dangerous Game, and I'm sure you've seen some as others, but Avenging Force takes a really interesting look at those kind of layers where man is hunting man. And that's something that this makes this one of the most fun and enjoyable kind of versions of that. What do you think are some of the elements in Avenging Force that really makes it that successful along that lines?
Well, I mean, if you're just talking about the Most Dangerous Game hunted angle, I think that just the premise of them hunting them through the, just aesthetically and visually and for the fight sequences, it's all about the environment. It's all about, the fact that they had, to throw flash grenades into the water to scare the animals. They had to have a ring of armed guards with guns to protect them from alligators while they shot in the rain. You feel that, in between takes, Dudikoff was pulling leeches off of his body, I think that there's been a lot of films that have, mimicked Most Dangerous Game before and after Avenging Force. There's been several after Avenging Force that are almost remakes of Avenging Force. I mean, there's, Surviving the Game.
Yeah, but not exactly as good.
No, absolutely. And they're, Avenging Force, first of all, has Dudikoff and Steve James, like you said. I think the pairing of those two, like Sam said, they just have that chemistry that together. I also think that there were some films before that that had the black-white buddy cop sort of thing, like 48 Hours, things like that.
Right.
But I think after American Ninja and Avenging Force, I think around 87, I think it was, with Lethal Weapon, the black-white buddy cop, thing became almost like a stereotype. It was in everything, and I think Sam's films, there was a lot of firsts in those movies. I think that also, the villains are just so unbelievably despicable and bigoted, and they're hunting anyone that has any views that oppose them. They're somewhat, liberal views. So, I mean, I think it brings a different angle to, they're killing children and stuff. I mean, they're horrible human beings, which bring the heroes up even more because they're just so despicable. You know what I mean?
No, I would absolutely agree with that. Sam, during Avenging Force, during one of the swamp sequences, you guys mentioned alligators. You got a quick shot of an alligator jumping into the water. Was that just happenstance that you managed to get that?
Yeah, it was in the morning, when we came, every day we came in the morning, preparations, the alligators were there. The procedure was that they threw, the safety people threw a stun grenade into the water, and everybody, they all disappeared. So I think the cameraman just got a quick shot of this alligator. No, it was real. It was right there. But it was early in the morning when we arrived. Every day when we arrived in the morning, it was quiet with birds, and you could see alligator, especially the snakes, the water snakes.
Awesome. Now I know that you've traveled.
They threw the grenade and they guarded us all. Every time we were in the water, there were, we had a ring of guards around us, watching. So this is just the elements of the. But listen, the idea of hunting men have been done in movies and I'm sure in stories, etc. And this was James Booth. This was the writer vision.
Right.
I did not bring this element. It was basically in the script. So he wanted it this way, that there is this group, white supremacy group, and they are so wacky, and that they get their thrill from hunting other people. This was a game for them. Yeah. And this was brainchild of James Booth.
That's awesome. So I got to ask you, Sam, I know you've traveled the world and have been honored for a lot of your films at festivals and such, where you are often the guest of honor. As you're being honored for American Ninja and Ninja 3, does Avenging Force come up more now when you're talking to fans at these festivals?
Avenging Force is gaining momentum. It's 35 years old.
Yeah.
It's gaining momentum. It's being noticed more and more by viewers, by writers, reviewers, and by festivals manager, because suddenly it's becoming relevant with the atmosphere, with the racial and the white supremacy and the French groups and the militias which are happening now. So the movie is becoming more and more relevant, despite the fact that it's 35 years old. And it was buried for many years. As I say, it was never distributed in a major way. It was never distributed in a way like the American Ninjas movies, which were distributed by a major company, MGM. They knew what they were doing. And this movie was just thrown off, and in some countries it was called American Ninja number 2, which is completely confusing in other countries. And then they had to call American Ninja number 2, American Ninja number 3. So in some other countries, they got really confused what this movie is all about. But suddenly, people discover movies. And yes, to answer your question, you're absolutely right. It's coming, it's gaining recognition more and more and more, and I hear about it more. And I was in a screening of this movie. Of course, it does not reach the level of American Ninja. Let's not make a mistake here. American Ninja is phenomenal. It's so popular around the world,
right?
Because it has elements that Avenging Force doesn't have. Some other elements which are very popular. But it is gaining, I hope, and that's why I'm so happy that Chris and he took it upon himself to highlight this movie, to make a documentary, because I got a lot of questions. There are 2 documentaries circulating around, the making of American Ninja and the making of American Ninja 2.
Right.
And many people write to me and say, when are we going to see the making of Avenging Force?
Awesome.
I didn't have an answer. I never had an answer. And suddenly Dustin and Chris came, and I'm so happy that they took it upon themselves. And it's a terrific movie. I saw it, by the way. It's a terrific documentary. And it will help. It will help to elevate it. And the legacy also of Michael Dudikoff. He was not only the American Ninja, he did other stuff, and Steve James. And there are some other good actor. John P. Ryan is in the movie.
Yeah.
Wow. And hopefully, I consider it. Listen, James. As for myself, in my career, directorial career, I directed about 25 movies, most of them action. In my directorial career, I consider this the best, well-crafted movie that I made. This is, from a cinematic point of view, thematic and cinematic, it's probably the best movie I directed.
Yeah, and I will definitely echo your comments on that. For everyone listening right now, it's definitely a film to check on out. Avenging Force. Again, it's a film that seems more relevant today.
Right, and it came out. It just came out on Blu-ray, high definition with commentary by Michael and myself. So
that's excellent.
It's a good.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Christian,
yes.
Any plans on when you're focusing on future films with Sam there? Are you looking at, say, Ninja 3, The Domination?
Yes, we've, like I said, we've interviewed him on his first 7 films. He's agreed to do Q&As for each one when we release them. Right now, we're working on Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. We're doing that because I wanted to do something more light and fun after Avenging Force, because it's kind of dark and the themes of, the social political thing. Sadly, Shabadoo passed away as we started to work on that, so it seems sadly relevant as well. But I'm saving the ninja movies for several reasons. The main reason is on Sundays, we're currently interviewing Stephen Lambert right now.
Oh, excellent.
and he's involved in the majority of Sam's ninja films. So we wanted, for Revenge of the Ninja, Ninja 3, and American Ninja, we're going to have commentary from both Sam and Stephen Lambert, the stunt coordinator, fight choreographer. So,
and often actor double as well.
Yes, as well. Yeah, he's Braden. You know, in yeah, he's anytime you see the mask in Revenge of the Ninja, it's basically him. So we're holding those off mainly so we can get a lot more footage from him. We're also doing a DocuCast series just on Steve as well, about his career, you know, Indiana Jones movies, Remo Williams, all that stuff.
Okay,
so,
well, that sounds good. Sam, I do want to say to you, I think Christian characterized you perfectly there, because it's amazing. I've talked to a lot of directors, producers, and actors, particularly about films from 30 and 40 years ago. It's just absolutely amazing the amount of recall that you have on these stories, on the experiences you've had, the life you've had. And it's wonderful to hear about it. And I feel very blessed to have interviewed you for a third time here on the show, asking about all these stories. So Sam, I want to thank you once again for joining us here on Ultrasonic Film. I really do appreciate it.
Welcome, welcome. I love to tell the stories. I have a visual memory, as you say, because I deal with visual media. And thank you for having us. It's fantastic.
Absolutely, thank you.
Absolutely. Now, Christian, please, can you give everyone the information for checking out the documentary and the Q&A with Sam again, if you could do that?
Sure. Please go to patreon.com/RetroFiendRadio. Our premiere is going to be January 29th through January 31st. So that weekend, patrons would have 3 days to watch the documentary, and then on Sunday the 31st, Sunday January 31st, we'll be doing the Q&A with Sam at 11 a.m. Also, we will be releasing the documentary on YouTube to the public next month as well. So, I mean, I've always wanted to just give it to the fans, you know, for free. That was always the idea. This is just to have a fun little premiere Q&A. Maybe I could recoup some of my costs, because I put thousands of dollars into this, into my show already. So this is more of a fun thing for people that want to help try to support the cause. You know, we're going to be doing a lot more of these, but I know people are hard up for money right now, and I want the fans to have it for free, and they will get it eventually as well.
Good for you, man. I think that's absolutely fantastic. And again, I want to thank both of you for joining me here on the show. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Christian.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.